قل هذه سبيلي أدعو إلى الله على بصيرة أنا ومن اتبعني وسبحان الله وما أنا من المشركين.
الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, I welcome all of the honorable listeners back to the series of lectures in which we are sharing a brief overview over the Ahle-Hadith Salafi Dawah in the Indo-Pak subcontinent and the efforts of the Ahle-Hadith in various aspects of the religion of Islam and to the Muslims. And we have started our discussion in the previous lecture with some of the other Islamic calls and movements from which the Ahle-Hadith Dawah, the Salafi Dawah in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, it benefited from, and it united with due to the unity of the call of these calls with the Dawah of the Ahle-Hadith. And that the Ahle-Hadith, instead of just serving their own maslak and their own call in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, they are the foremost of the people who also service these other calls that were unified with them in their methodology. And we mentioned that we will focus on only three calls and three movements from these movements, and they are the call and dawah of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, and the call and movement of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, and the call of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Ali al-Shawkani rahimahullah. And we have started our discussion in a previous class with the call of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. We mentioned his brief biography, and we mentioned some of his students who reached the Indo-Pak subcontinent in his lifetime, who were direct students of his or after his death rahimahullah, and they brought with them the methodology of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, which is the methodology of the Ahle-Hadith of unrestrictedly and conditionally following the Quran and the Sunnah and giving precedence to it over one's intellect, and shunning madhahib, confining and restricting to a madhab from the madhahib, having fanatism, extremism towards it, and shunning taqleed, blind following of an imam from the imams. And we mentioned some of the effects of the students of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah coming to the Indo-Pak subcontinent, such as the ruler of the Tughlaq dynasty himself, Sultan Muhammad Tughlaq, Shah Muhammad Tughlaq, who had efforts in eradicating shirk and the darkness that had become prevalent in the Indo-Pak subcontinent of the Muslims worshipping other than Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala, following the Hindus in taking the dead and the graves as places of worship, prostrating to them, calling to them, making dua, seeking their help, and making tawaf around the graves, and all types of acts of major shirk that exit a person from the fold of Islam. How Muhammad Tughlaq had a role in eradicating these acts of shirk and these bid'at, innovations and misguidance in his time, and that he was most likely influenced by these teachings and this call and movement of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, as he had direct connection and meetings with the students of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah who had come to the Indo-Pak subcontinent carrying this methodology to it. Then we moved on to the time of Shah Waliullah Dahlawi, the Mujaddid, the reviver of Islamic sciences and Islamic knowledge in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, and we mentioned his great influence by Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and his books and his teachings and his methodology, who quoted him in several of his books, and he wrote to his foremost students advising them to benefit from the literature of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and raising him in rank and mentioning to them his great virtue and nobility. Then we moved on to the time of the great Imam of the Salafis, Ahle-Hadith, Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan rahimahullah, and his great efforts in publishing the books for the first time ever in the entire world, some of the books of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah that he published upon his own budget, and then he distributed them freely amongst the scholars and the students of knowledge all over the world. And these are the first editions of the books that have ever been published of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and him also quoting extensively from him in his books and defending him and praising him with great praises. Then the second Imam from the Imams of the Ahle-Hadith, Salafis in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, who is Imam Mujaddid Sayyid Nazir Hussain Dahlawi rahimahullah, and that he had students who greatly serviced the methodology of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, from them the Ghaznavi family of Allama Abdullah Ghaznavi and his children, such as Abdul Jabbar and Abdul Wahid and Abdul Rahim and other than them, who were all students of Shaykh al-Kul fil Kul Nazir Hussain Dahlawi, and they had a great role in spreading the methodology and the teachings of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and also had a role in publishing some of the books of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah for the first time in the Indo-Pak subcontinent. Also, we mentioned that not just the Ahlul Hadith, the Salafis, rather the effect of the call and the methodology of the Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah also reached the Hanafis. Other than the Ahlul Hadith, Salafis, the Hanafis, those who were not extreme and staunch in their fanatism to the Hanafi madhab, we mentioned from them Shibli Nomani, from the major scholars of the Hanafis of the past century, how he was greatly influenced by the teachings of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and he praised them and he called his students Sayyid Sulaiman Nadwi and other than them to benefit from his teachings, and taking him as from the foremost Imams of the Muslims in all matters of the religion. Now we will continue where we left off, which is after mentioning the literature of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah that had been serviced and published briefly in the Indo-Pak subcontinent in the Arabic language by Imam Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan and the students of Imam Nazir Hussain Dahlawi. We will mention the Urdu efforts, the language of the Muslims in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, efforts in the Urdu language in spreading the methodology and the literature of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, so that the general Muslims, the general layman Muslims, could also benefit from his teachings, from his methodology of unrestrictedly, unconditionally calling to the Quran and the Sunnah. And the first book of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, we say regarding this, that the first book of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah that has been translated in the Urdu language in history is by the student of Imam Nazir Hussain Dahlawi, Abu Abdullah Ghulam Ali Qasuri from the city of Qusur in Pakistan, who passed away in the year 1306 after the Hijrah. He translated the first book ever of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah in the Urdu language, Al-Hamawiyya fi Rad al-Jahmiyya, which is a book in the creed of the Salaf in refutation of the misguided deviant sect of the Jahmiyya, the Mu'attila, those who negate the attributes of Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala. So he translated this book into the Urdu language, titled this Shafiya Tarjamat Hamawiyya, and this was first published in the city of Lahore, the capital of the state of Punjab, the province of Punjab in Pakistan, in the year 1291 after the Hijrah, more than 150 years ago. Years ago. And this opened the gates for the literature of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah to reach even the layman Muslims, those who were drowned in these dark times in innovations and misguidance and deviance and ignorance. These teachings and methodology and literature of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah started to reach them, and they started to benefit them, and they started to be guided back to the teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah. And several of the scholars of the Indo-Pak subcontinent, then they wrote biographies in the Urdu language of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah to show the layman Muslims the status of this great Imam and the methodology of this great Imam, the methodology of the Ahle-Hadith, to introduce him to the layman Muslims, and also to defend him from that which the people of innovation and misguidance were falsely attributing to him from the Ashair and the Maturidiyya and the Sufis and other than them. So the first biography that started to be written of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah in the Urdu language is by Altaf Hussain Hali, which is a well-known scholar of the Urdu language and a poet in the Indo-Pak subcontinent. In the year 1875, he started to write an article about the life of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah in the Urdu language, but sadly he could not complete it. Then came Shibli Nomani, the one who just mentioned, from the foremost scholars of the Hanafis of the past century. He wrote a detailed article upon the life of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah. And regardless of some of the points that we might differ with him in this article, but him writing this detailed article amongst the circle of the Hanafis in this time, introducing Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, defending him, praising him, without a doubt, it is something that should be mentioned and praised. That should be mentioned and praised, by which even the Hanafis, they got exposed now to the teachings and the position and the rank of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah. Then came the great scholar from the Ahle-Hadith, from the major scholars of the Ahle-Hadith, Allama Abul Kalam Azad. Allama Abul Kalam Azad, rahimahullah, from the students of Shaykh al-Islam, Sayyid Nazir Hussain Dahlawi. He wrote his well-known book, Tazkira in the Urdu language, a detailed book upon the methodology and the revival efforts of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. It is a revolutionary book that has been written regarding Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and our Shaykh Salahuddin Maqbool, Hafidhullah, from the major scholars of the Ahl-Hadith of our times, who resides in Kuwait, he has just a few months ago translated this book also in the Arabic language, and it is published now, and the Arabs also can benefit from this book. And Allama Abul Kalam Azad, he appointed one of his students, which is Sheikh Abdul Razzaq Malhi Abadi, to translate some of the foremost books of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah into the Urdu language. And also, other than them, other scholars of the Ahlul Hadith, such as Sheikh Murad Ali Sodhrawi and Abdullah Qasuri, and others also from the Hanafis who were not extremist fanatics in their madhab, such as Abdul Rahim Peshawari, Abdul Hamid At-Tawi, Abdul Halim Nazim Darbhangi, Asghar Ali Ruhi, Sadaruddin Islahi. Other than them, they started to translate the books of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah into the Urdu language. And it would be oppression if we do not mention the great scholar of the Ahlul Hadith of our or past generation, Allama Ata'Allah Hanif Bhojiani. Allama Ata'Allah Hanif Bhojiani, from the major scholars of the Ahlul Hadith from the city of Lahore, Pakistan. Then he, from his youth, from a young age, he became extremely attached to the literature and the call and the methodology of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah. And just when he was 17 years of age, he wrote an article that he titled Shaykh Islam Imam ibn Taymiyyah par Ahle Bidat ke ittiham babat ziyarat qabr nabawi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, refuting and defending Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah from the attacks of the people of innovation and misguidance regarding the matter of visiting the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the city of Medina. And this article, when he was only 17 years of age, this knowledgeable article, it was published in the well-known magazine of the Ahlul Hadith, from the foremost of the magazines of the Ahlul Hadith in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, Akhbar-e Muhammadi, which was run, and the editor was Allama Muhammad Junagadhi rahimahullah, from the foremost students of Shaykh al-Kul Nazir Hussain Muhaddis Dahlawi. It was published in the year 1925. And Allama Ata'Allah Hanif Bhojiani continued in his research and reading of the books of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and he published several of the books of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah from his publishing house, which is well known in the city of Lahore, Al-Maktaba Salafiyya in Lahore. He published several of his books upon his own expense, and he also, from these books that he published in the Arabic language, are Iqtida Sirat al-Mustaqim of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and Al-Furqan Bayna Awliya al-Rahman wa Awliya al-Shaytan, and Minhaj al-Sunnah Nabawiyya fi Naqd Kalam al-Shia wal-Qadariyya, this great book of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, voluminous book, Minhaj al-Sunnah, which is from the foremost sources in refutation of the doubts of the Rafida Shia and other groups of misguidance such as the Qadariyya. And other than it, Allama Ata'Allah Hanif Bhojiani, he edited these works and published it, many of them for the first time, from his publishing house in Maktaba Salafiyya that still exists, alhamdulillah, in the city of Lahore, in Pakistan. He also translated several of the books, foremost books of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah into the Urdu language, also publishing it from his publishing out Maktaba Salafiyya. From them is Muqaddama Usul al-Tafsir, the great introduction that Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah wrote in Ulum al-Quran, in the sciences of the Quran. Before one studies the tafsir of the Quran, he published in the Urdu language translating. He also translated the book Al-Furqan that he published in the Arabic language. He also translated it and also published it in the Urdu language, and other great books. From his greatest efforts is that he translated or was the supervisor over the translation of the book, the great book of Sheikh Abu Zahra Misri. Abu Zahra Misri, rahimullah, Ibn Taymiyyah, Hayatuhu wa Asruhu wa Ara'uhu wa Fiqhuhu. Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, his life, his efforts, his methodology, and his positions in fiqh, in jurisprudence. This great book was authored by Sheikh Abu Zahra from the scholars of Egypt, Misr, and he is Muhammad Ahmad Mustafa, well known by his kunya Abu Zahra. He passed away in the year 1394 after the Hijrah. And he wrote several books, biographies upon some of the major scholars of Islam and some of the revivers of Islam. From them, a detailed book of Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah in the Arabic language. So, Allama Atallah Hanif Bhojiani, he appointed the great scholar Rais Ahmad Ja'fari, rahimullah, from the scholars of the Ahle-Hadith, to translate this book into the Urdu language by the name of Hayat Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, the life of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah. And then Allama Atallah Hanif Bhojiani added notes, his personal notes to this translation. And these notes itself, as our great Shaykh Uzair Shams rahimullah used to say, that they are an individual book and they deserve to be translated to the Arabic language. That these are the knowledge that these beneficial notes contain from the vast ocean of knowledge of Allama Atallah Hanif Bhojiani, that they are like an individual book that should be published individually and also translated into other languages so people can benefit from it. So these are some of the efforts of the scholars of the Indo-Pak subcontinent, especially the scholars of the Ahle-Hadith, in servicing the call and the movement of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah and his literature in both the Arabic and the Urdu language and other languages that are spoken in the Indo-Pak subcontinent that we did not mention due to shortage of time. As far as the detailed biographies of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, we mentioned the first who authored biographies regarding him in the Urdu language, and they were small detailed articles regarding his life. As far as the first book, a complete book on the biography of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, then it was authored by the well-known scholar Ghulam Rasul Maher rahimullah, that he titled Sirat Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, the biography of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, that he published in the year 1925 from the city of Lahore, in Pakistan. And this is the first individual book authored in the biography in the Urdu language of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah. And upon the request and motivation of Sayyid Sulaiman Nadwi, from the major scholars of the Hanafis of our time or past times, who was influenced by his teacher Shibli Nu'mani to revere and honor and benefit from Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, he directed one of his students, Dr. Muhammad Yusuf Kokan Umri, to also write a detailed book on the biography and methodology of Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah in the Urdu language that he titled Imam Ibn Taymiyyah. And this is the most vast biography of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah that is written in the Urdu language. The most vast biography that is written in the Urdu language. It was first published in the year 1959. And the well-known scholar of the Hanafis, Abul Hasan Ali Mian Nadwi, from the well-known scholars of Nadwatul Ulama, from the major scholars of the Hanafis of our times, he authored his well-known book, Tariq Da'wat wa Azimat, in the Urdu language, the history of the revival calls in Islam. So he mentioned a specific chapter in this voluminous book for Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and his call and the effects of his call all over the world, all over the world. Also, other people such as Ghulam Jilani Barq and Abu Salman Shah Jahan Puri from the scholars of the Hanafis, they also wrote books, detailed books in the biography of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah in the Arabic, in the Urdu language, showing that from the Hanafis themselves, those people of intellect and justice, then they realized the worth of this great scholar Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and they try to introduce him and his sciences and his methodology to the followers of their madhab, the Hanafi madhab. And we will finish by mentioning our great scholar who passed away over the last year, Sheikh Uzair Shams rahimahullah, from the major scholars of the Ahle-Hadith of our times, from the city of Bihar, who resided in Mecca, where he passed away rahimahullah a few months ago, within the last year, who dedicated his life in servicing the literature of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah. And it is well known amongst the scholars and researchers that the writing, the manuscript writing, the writing of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah is one of the most difficult writings that exist in manuscripts. There are some scholars whose writing was extremely difficult. It is extremely difficult to read and understand. From them is the writing of Shaykh Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and also Imam Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani is also mentioned from them, whose writing is extremely difficult because they used to write with quickness, and alhamdulillah they wrote thousands and hundreds of pages and volumes, so their writings are difficult. Shaykh Uzair Shams rahimahullah, he reached mastery and proficiency in reading the writing of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah. From the most difficult of writing of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, the Arab scholars from all over the world, they would refer back to him, and within a few seconds he would be able to read it and solve their writing for them. Researchers in PhD, professors, they will return back to him, and within a few seconds he will read and mention to him what this writing mean. He published, Shaykh Uzair Shams rahimahullah, the treatises of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah that are not found in his voluminous collection of Majmu' al-Fatawa that you can see behind us. Majmu' al-Fatawa, that is published for decades now, that some of the scholars of Najd, of Riyadh and Qasim, from the students of the Dawah of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab, as will come soon, they published decades ago, more than half a century ago. Shaykh Uzair Shams, he traveled all over the world, libraries, manuscript libraries all over the world, finding the manuscripts of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah that had never been published, So he found the rarest of manuscripts from libraries all over the world, from Central Asia to Indo-Pak subcontinent, to Egypt, Syria, Turkey, to Western countries, UK, Netherlands, America, etc. And he collected these rare manuscripts of the treatises of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah and edited them and published them. And alhamdulillah, they're published in 9 volumes. That he titled Jami' al-Masail, which are the additional works and treatises of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah that are not found in Majmu' al-Fatawa. And he appointed several scholars in the Indo-Pak subcontinent under his supervision to start to translate some of the books of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah into the Urdu language. And after his death, rahimahullah, one of those scholars completed just recently a translation of the summary of the Fatawa of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, Majmu' al-Fatawa. Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, he published 5-6 volumes of it just recently from Pakistan. So Shaykh Uzair Shams rahimahullah, he has great efforts also in servicing the methodology and the call and the efforts and the heritage and literature of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah. After this, we'll move on to the second call and movement that had influence on the Ahle-Hadith Salafi Dawah in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, that has a close relation with the Ahle-Hadith Dawah in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, which is the Dawah and the call and the movement of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahab rahimahullah. And he is from the revivers of the 12th century who revived the methodology and the call of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah, and he took this call from knowledge and from principles in written form to action. Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab, then he was blessed by Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala with political force and might, as will come soon, that aided him to move this movement from books and from learning and teaching to applying it upon the earth, to establishing it upon the earth. And he is the great scholar Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab At-Tamimi, rahimahullah, from the well-known Arab tribe of Tamim, Banu Tamim in Najd, in central Arabic Peninsula. He was born in the year 1115 after the Hijrah, and he passed away in the year 1206 after the Hijrah. And we mentioned previously that he sought knowledge in Medina from the great scholar of the Ahle-Hadith from the Indo-Pak subcontinent, Allama Muhammad Hayat Sindhi, Muhammad Hayat bin Ibrahim Sindhi, who at the same time, the foremost of the revivers in the Islamic world, they sought knowledge from him. So Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab sought knowledge from him in Medina. Shah Waliullah Dahlawi, as he mentioned, he sought knowledge from him in Medina. And Imam al-San'ani al-Shawkani from the revivers of Yemen, they also sought knowledge from him in Medina. So he is Imam of the Mujaddideen. Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, he started his call after returning from seeking knowledge from Medina and other places in Najd, in his locality in central Arabic Peninsula, and he found the support of the ruler of Dar'iyya, a small town that is now part of Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia. It lies on the outskirts of Riyadh, whose ruler was Muhammad ibn Saud, Al-Amir Muhammad ibn Saud, rahimahullah, more than 3 centuries ago. He is the one who aided his call and supported him and granted him protection, and they signed a pact of cooperation that exists, alhamdulillah, until our times. So by this, Allah Ta'ala blessed him with also political strength and force, by which they eradicated shirk and innovations and misguidance and deviance from the Arabic Peninsula. And one of the reasons for the great success of the movement and the call of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah is his sincerity, that he had no concern for political power and political position. Rather, his concern was spreading knowledge and calling the people to the teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah, spreading the knowledge of Tawheed and fighting shirk and innovations and misguidance. And regarding this, the great scholar Masood Alam Nadwi rahimahullah, and he has written a book that is considered the foremost book that has been written pertaining to the call and the movement of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah, that he wrote in the Urdu language, Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab ek mazloom aur badnaam muslih. Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab ek mazloom aur badnaam muslih, that Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab, someone who has been oppressed and who has been slandered unjustly by the people. And this is the greatest book authored in the Dawah and the call and the movement of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab from this great scholar of the Indo-Pak subcontinent, who was originally from the Ahle-Hadith, and then he joined Maududi and his Jamaat al-Islami, but he still had influences of the methodology of the Ahle-Hadith with him until he passed away from the scholars of Bihar, in India. And this book, due to its importance, then our Shaykh from the major scholars of the Ahle-Hadith in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, who resided in Mecca, and he also passed away 7-8 years ago in Mecca, our Shaykh Abdul Alim bin Abdul Azim al-Bastawi rahimahullah, he translated this book into the Arabic language. Language that is published and well known, that even the Arabs benefit from. Masood Alam Nadwi rahimahullah, he says in this book, Muhammad Abdul Wahhab ek ठेठ आलिम थे, उन पर उनकी निगाहें बड़ी दूर रस थी। उन्होंने अपनी ज़िंदगी में दावत के समरात देखे, दीनी समरात भी और दुनियावी फल फूल भी। उनकी ज़िंदगी में नज्द का पूरा इलाका मफ्तूह हो चुका था। अमीर नज्द और उसके अहले ख़ानदान कदमों पर जान निचार करने को तैयार रहते थे। सारा जाह व हशम शेख की जूतियों का सदका था। मुजाहिद और आम कौम इन्हीं को जानती थी और इन्हीं पर फरिफ्ता थी। वो चाहते तो सल्तनत भी अपनी औलाद के हिस्से रखते, ख़ुद ज़िम्मा हुकूमत अपने हाथ में लेते, लेकिन उन्होंने अपने को इस ज़िम्मेदारियों से यकसर अलग रखा। अमीर मोहम्मद बिन सऊद और उनके जानशीन इनके मशवरों के बग़ैर कोई काम नहीं करते और ना करना चाहते। सारा माल गनीमत उनके कदमों पर ला कर डाल दिया जाता, लेकिन इस अल्लाह के बंदे ने अपने काम से काम रखा। जब तक ज़रूरत रही दखल देते रहे। ज्यों ही उन्होंने महसूस किया कि अब दावत की बुनियादें इस्तेवार हो गई हैं, अपने को मुल्की इंतज़ामात और माल गनीमत के नज़म व नक्श से यकसर अलग कर लिया। He says that Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab, he was from the well-grounded scholars who had a visionary view, someone who had a view of revival and vision, and he in his lifetime saw great victories in which the entire area of Najd in Central Arabian Peninsula, it spread the call of Tawheed and the Sunnah. He saw the fruits of his call, they had spread, and all of Najd had come under the rule of Imam Muhammad ibn Saud rahimahullah upon the call of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab, and that the worldly treasures and pleasures, all of them were placed in his lap. All of them were placed in his lap, and Amir Muhammad bin Saud and his family members and all of the people, they all submitted to the choice of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab, and they did not do anything except with his permission and his approval. But Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab, even with all of this, he shunned worldly positions and any role in rulership. He shunned worldly positions and any role in rulership, and he kept his focus on knowledge and spreading the teachings of the Quran and the Sunnah, and spreading the knowledge of Tawheed and eradicating shirk and innovations. Whenever he felt a need to correct any matter in the Islamic rulership, then he would interject, and whenever there was no need, immediately he would distance himself and busy himself with that which was his life mission. And since his call, it arose in a region that is the region which is the Qibla of the Muslimin, the Qibla where the Muslims, they turn to in their prayers, where the Muslims travel to for Hajj, for the obligatory pilgrimage, and for Umrah. Then without a doubt it was only natural that the call of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab from this region of the Arabic Peninsula, very quickly the Muslims would have come, would have witnessed it, would have been exposed to it, and then would have taken back this call to their regions. So this call spread in a very short time throughout the Muslim world due to a strategic location which was Najd and Hijaz and Haramain. Because of this, news of it spread all throughout the Muslim world, and the people of innovation and misguidance from the Sufis and the Ash'aris and the Maturidis, the enemies of the Dawah, of the Ahle-Hadith, the Salaf, they spread all types of accusations and slanders against Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab and his Dawah, and to the point that even the Ahle-Hadith of the Indo-Pak subcontinent, they became known as the Wahhabis, and they were also accused of being from this renegade new sect that the Sufis and the Asharis and the Maturidis had warned the Muslims from, even with a severe warning than the Hindus and the Jews and the Christians. So Shah Ismail Shahid rahimahullah, who we mentioned in our previous classes, who wrote his revolutionary book Taqwiyatul Iman, which is the book that has been most published in the Urdu language, even until our times. In the last 200 years, no book has been published more than this great book, Taqwiyatul Iman, and has been a source of guidance, not for 100,000, not for 1 million, not for tens of millions, hundreds of millions of people. Hundreds of millions of people have been guided to Tawheed and the Sunnah and the call of the Ahle-Hadith by way of this book, Taqwiyatul Iman. This revolutionary book, when Shah Ismail Shahid, he wrote it and it started to spread, the people of innovation and misguidance, they resembled it to the book Kitab al-Tawheed of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. The book of Tawheed, also a revolutionary book that Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab wrote, by which millions and millions of people were guided back to Tawheed and abandon shirk and that which brings them closer to it. So the people of innovation and misguidance, they started accusing the Ahle-Hadith by saying that Taqwiyatul Iman, then it is only that which is a translation of the book Kitab al-Tawheed, only a translation of the book Kitab al-Tawheed. And when Shah Ismail Shaheed and his companion Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed rahimahumullah, when they led their first Islamic movement in the Indo-Pak subcontinent of eradicating shirk and innovation misguidance, Tahriq al-Shahidain, the first Islamic movement in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, and to free the Indo-Pak subcontinent from the rule of the British and others, then they were also accused of being Wahhabi. They were also being accused of being Wahhabi. The English rulers themselves, those who colonized the Indo-Pak subcontinent, they accused the followers of this movement, which is the foundation of the Ahle-Hadith Dawah in the Indo-Pak subcontinent that came later, that they were Wahhabis. And this term Wahhabi was resembled to a traitor, the one who is a traitor. And so even though none of this had any reality to it, Shah Ismail Shaheed and Sayyid Ahmad Shaheed, then they had no direct connection with the dawah and the call of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab in those early times. They had no connection to it, but it shows how the dawah of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab spread in an early time, and even others who had no connection to it directly, but were upon the same methodology of calling to the Quran and the Sunnah and Tawheed and the Sunnah, they were also accused of being upon this call and dawah of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. And we mentioned that Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, then he is from the students of Allama Muhammad Haya Sindhi, Imam Muhammad Haya Sindhi. So it is only natural that Sindh, the region of Sindh in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, then it would be the first to have been heavily influenced by the call of Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. And this is what occurred. So from the scholars of Sindh is Shaykh Habibullah No Shahrwai. He made migration from Sindh to Hijaz, to Mecca and Medina, and there he studied and gained knowledge from the foremost of the scholars of Mecca and Medina. And he was someone who was staunch upon Tawheed and staunch and harsh against shirk and his people and all types of innovations and misguidance. And he passed away in the city of Medina in the year 1238 after the Hijrah. 1238, more than 200 years ago. 1238 after the Hijrah. And he had a brother whose name is Uthman No Shahrwai. Uthman No Shahrwai. He also is from the major scholars and from the well-known scholars of Hadith in Sindh. The historian of Sindh, Sheikh Deen Muhammad Wafai, in his book Tazkira Mashahir Sindh, a biography of the well-known scholars of Sindh, he says, अभी जवानी की उम्र को भी नहीं पहुँचे थे कि मक्का शरीफ रवाना हो गए। मक्का में पहले ही उनके भाई मियाँ हबीबुल्लाह मुहाजिर वहाँ जाकर मुकीम हो गए थे। वो एक बड़े आलिम, मुहद्दिस और मुवहिद थे। उस ज़माने में शेख मोहम्मद बिन अब्दुल वहाब नजदी का हरमैन के बाज़ उलमा पर काफ़ी मुवहिदाना असर मौजूद था। उनके भाई भी इसी रंग में रंगे हुए थे। That he says that Sheikh Uthman No Shahrwai, then in a young age he migrated from Sindh to Mecca, and in Mecca already his brother Habibullah No Shahrwai was already present, already made hijrah, migration to Mecca before him, and he was someone who was a major scholar, a well-grounded scholar, and a major scholar of hadith, and from the muwahhideen, those who were upon the call and the methodology of tawheed and of refuting and shunning shirk in all its forms and its people. And he says that in those times in the Haramain, then the call and dawah of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab had spread in the Haramain, and several scholars had become influenced by it and were upon his call and methodology. From them was Sheikh Habibullah Noshahrawai. From them was Sheikh Habibullah Noshahrawai. And his brother Uthman, when he made hijrah, migration, or when he traveled to Mecca, then he did not accept this call and this methodology of his brother of the call of Tawheed of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab. But soon after learning about this call and researching it and hearing about its proofs, he became from the people who were influenced by it and the one who followed this methodology. And he returned back to Sindh. Uthman Noshahrawai, he returned back to Sindh, and on his way, due to him being influenced by Shaykh Islam Abdul Wahab's call of Tawheed and the Sunnah and the methodology of the Salaf, he sought knowledge from the great Imam Muhammad bin Ali al-Shawkani. Muhammad bin Ali al-Shawkani, rahimahullah. He sought knowledge from him in Yemen, and then he returned to Sindh. And these are the scholars who are unified in their methodology. The Ahle-Hadith of the Indo-Pak subcontinent, Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab, Imam Muhammad bin Ali al-Shawkani, as will come. And when he returned to Sindh, then the people of Sindh and the scholars of Sindh, then they severely opposed him. They severely opposed him and this call to Tawheed and the Sunnah. But he continued in spreading Tawheed and refuting, rejecting shirk and innovations and calling to it. And he was someone, as I mentioned in his biography, he severely opposed taqleed. He severely opposed taqleed, blind following of an imam and a mazhab from the mazahib, confining, restricting to it. He would not accept in matters of the religion any statement and proof except the ayah of the Quran or the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He would not accept any statement of an imam or opinion, fatwa, judgment from anyone in place of the Quran and the Sunnah. And he lived a long time, after which he passed away in the year 1294 after the Hijrah in the region of Sindh. Also, what shows the great influence and the connection of the Ahlul-Hadith Dawah in the Indo-Pak subcontinent with the Dawah of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab and their efforts in servicing this call of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab is that the great book Kitab al-Tawheed of Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Wahab, this revolutionary book, then to defend this book, then the scholars of the Ahlul Hadith in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, they felt it necessary that this book be translated into the Urdu language so that the laymen, they could read this book and that it could reach them and they could read that this book contains nothing except the ayat and the ahadith, except the ayat from the Quran and the ahadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this book, Kitab al-Tawheed, then it was translated for the first time by the great scholar of the Ahlul Hadith from the foremost students of Imam Sayyid Nazir Hussain Dahlawi, Allama Talattuf Hussain Azimabadi. Talattuf Hussain Azimabadi rahimahullah, from the city of Patna, the capital of the state of Bihar in India, from the close companions of Allama Shamsul Azimabadi, another foremost student of Imam Nazir Hussain Dahlawi. For the first time this book was translated, Kitab al-Tawheed, into the Urdu language, and it was published from Matba' Faruqi, Al-Matba' al-Faruqi, Faruqi publishers in the city of Delhi, the capital of the Indo-Pak subcontinent, in the year 1299 after the Hijrah. 1299 after the Hijrah, almost 145 years ago. Almost 145 years ago. And Allama Talattuf Hussain Azimabadi, he supervised over this publishing and translation. He allocated the job of translating to his companion colleague, also from the well-known major students of Imam Nazir Hussain Dahlawi, who is Allama Abdul Halim Sharar. Abdul Halim Sharar rahimahullah, who is from the foremost students of Imam Nazir Hussain Dahlawi and one of the well-known novelists of the Indo-Pak subcontinent. He has written several novels in the Urdu language, novels that are full of benefit regarding tarbiyah, cultivation, and regarding manners and morals, etc. He is the one who translated this book, Kitab al-Tawheed, for the first time in the Urdu language upon the supervision and the publishing of Talattuf Hussain Azimabadi. And from the other Imam of the Ahlul Hadith in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, then he got introduced to the call and the literature and the books of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab by way of his students of Najd, that several of the students from the family members of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab and his students from the four major scholars of this revivalist movement in Najd in central Arabic Peninsula, they traveled to the Indo-Pak subcontinent to seek knowledge of hadith from the scholars of the Ahle-Hadith, and from the foremost of them that they traveled to was Imam Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan. So by way of the students of this call, now Imam Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, he got introduced to this da'wah, and he got greatly influenced by this call and da'wah of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. He wrote detailed biographies of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab in several of his books, such as Ithaf al-Nubala and Hujaj al-Karama and Hadiyat al-Sa'il in the Persian Farsi language. He wrote vast biographies in these books defending Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, mentioning his praise, mentioning his efforts and his call and his methodology. And in some of these books we'll mention that he says in his book Hidayat al-Sa'il, which is in the Persian Farsi language, the translation of which he says in the Urdu language, Muhammad Abdul Wahhab alim wa muttabi sunnat the, sunnat mutahhara ka ittiba inke nafs par ghalib thi, इनके रसाइल मारूफ है मगर दियार हिंद में इनकी तालीफात उमूमन दस्तयाब नहीं इल्ला माशा अल्लाह. That he says that Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, then he was someone who was a great scholar, someone who was muttabi' as-sunnah, the one who unconditionally and restrictively followed the sunnah, and following the sunnah, giving precedence to it, was that what was his methodology, and his books and his treatises, they are well known. They are well known in the Arab worlds, but sadly, he says in his time, until those times, then they are not known in the Indo-Pak subcontinent. His books are not spread in the Indo-Pak subcontinent except in small numbers. He also says in another place in this book, Hidayat al-Sahil, the translation of which in the Urdu language from Persian is, Muhammad Abdul Wahhab ka tariqa Shaykh al-Islam Abul Abbas Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam ibn Taymiyyah जो कर्न साबे के आज़म हुफ़्फ़ाज़ में और अफ़ाज़िल अइम्मा हुदा से थे, और शेख शम्सुद्दीन अबू अब्दुल्लाह मोहम्मद बिन अबी बकर इब्न अल-क़य्यिम जो हाफ़िज़ असर थे के तरीक़े का इत्तिबा था. That the call of Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, then it is the upon the methodology and the call of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, Abu Abbas Ahmad ibn Abdul Halim ibn Abdul Salam ibn Taymiyyah, who is from the revivers of the 7th century, from the major scholars of the Muslims, and his student Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, Shamsuddin Abu Abdullah Muhammad ibn Abi Bakr ibn al-Qayyim, then his call was a revival, and upon the basis of the call of these two scholars that preceded him. And Imam Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, then he has quoted from the books of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab in several of his books and defended him with the greatest of defenses. And he was tried and tested due to this, that he was tried and tested due to his great efforts in servicing the call of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. He was accused of being a Wahhabi, that was tantamount to being a traitor. And in the year 1302 after the Hijrah, then the British Empire, who colonized the entire Indo-Pak subcontinent, even though they had allowed some Muslim dynasties to exist, but in a subdued manner under their rule, such as the dynasty of Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan in Bhopal, and the dynasty of Asif Jah in Hyderabad, and other dynasties, but they all were under the rule and the umbrella of the British Empire, the colonial British Empire. So the British, they took away his position and his rulership and all titles of Nawab, etc., ruler and king, etc., from Imam Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan in the year 1302 after the Hijrah. And he was also jailed and arrested, being accused of being a Wahhabi, a traitor of the British, a traitor of the British. The foremost accusation that was leveled against him is that he is the accusation of aiding the Wahhabi movement, aiding the movement of the Wahhabis, the traders. Also, we will mention another major scholar and from the foremost students of Imam Sayyid Nazir Hussain Dahlawi, who is Allama Muhammad Bashir Sahsawani. Allama Muhammad Bashir Sahsawani, who wrote one of the greatest books in the Arabic language in defense of the movement and the call of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. We had Shaykh Masood Alam Nadwi, who wrote the great book in the Urdu language. Then we have Allama Muhammad Bashir Sahsawani, who wrote this great book in the Arabic language. And this book is in its original form in a refutation of one of the foremost of the scholars of the Ottoman Empire, the Turkish Ottoman Empire that was ruling the Muslim world in that time, and they had the rule over Hijaz, Mecca and Medina before the entering of Ali Saud in Hijaz, Mecca and Medina. So from the foremost of their scholars in Mecca was a person named Ahmad ibn Zaini Dahlan. Ahmad ibn Zaini Dahlan, who was from the major scholars of the Sufis, of the Ash'ira and Maturidiyya, and he was from the foremost of the scholars of the Shafi'is, of extremist, fanatic in the Shafi'i madhab. He wrote a complete book in refutation of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab in the Arabic language, and the call and the methodology of Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab that he titled Ad-Durar As-Saniyya fi Rad ala al-Wahhabiyya. Ad-Durar As-Saniyya fi Rad ala al-Wahhabiyya, in refutation of the Wahhabis and the people upon the methodology of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. And this until today is one of the foremost books that is quoted by the Arab Sufis in refutation of the Salafi Dawah and the Dawah of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. So this great scholar from the Indo-Pak subcontinent, this great scholar from the students of Shaykh al-Islam Mujaddid Sayyid Nazir Hussain Dahlawi, he wrote a book in the Arabic language in refutation of this person of Zaini Dahlan, that until today no book has been written greater than this book in defense of the call and the methodology of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, in defense of it and aiding it. And this is the great book Siyanatul Insan, Siyanatul Insan and Waswasat al-Shaykh Dahlan, Siyanatul Insan and Waswasat al-Shaykh Dahlan, that is widely revered and accepted by all of the major scholars in the Arab lands, and from the students and the family members of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab until our times, from the major scholars of Saudi Arabia and others, all of them. Then they revere and highly respect and honor this great book. It has been published several times in the Arabic language. And regarding this book, the well-known scholar of Egypt, Rashid Rida, he says regarding this book, وجملة ما يقال في هذا الكتاب أنه ليس ردا على الشيخ دهلان وحده ولا على من احتج بما نقله عنهم من الفقهاء مما لا حجة فيه كالشيخ تقي الدين السبكي والشيخ أحمد بن حجر الهيثمي المكي، بل هو رد على جميع القبوريين والمبتدعين حتى الذين جاءوا بعده إلى زماننا هذا. That he says that this book of Allama Muhammad Bashir Sahsawani, Siyanatul Insan, then what can be said regarding this book is that it is not just a refutation of Dahlan only. It is not just a refutation of Dahlan, nor is it only a refutation of the scholars who Zaini Dahlan has quoted in this book in refutation of the call of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, who are Taqiyuddin Subki and Ahmad ibn Hajar al-Haythami al-Makki. And these are from the major scholars of the Sufis, of the Ash'ira that have preceded in past centuries, Taqiyuddin Subki and Ibn Hajar al-Haythami. So Zaini Dahlan in this book, he vastly quoted from these two scholars in spreading Tasawwuf, Sufism and the creed of the Ash'ira and the Maturidiyya and refutation of the call of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. So he says that this book, Siyanatul Insan, is not just a refutation of Dahlan and Subki and Ibn Hajar al-Haythami, rather it is a refutation on all of the people of shirk, those who worship the dead and worship the graves, and all of the people of innovation, to the point that it is also a refutation upon such people of innovation, misguidance and people of shirk until the end of times, even those who came after Allama Muhammad Bashir Sahsawani. even those who will come after him until the end of times, showing the great status and position of this book, Siyanatul Insan. Also, from the foremost of the students of Imam Nazir Hussain Dehlawi, then there the Ghaznavi family that has preceded with us in our previous lecture, whose, as we said, whose head was the great scholar Allama Abdullah Ghaznavi, and he had righteous sons that Allah Ta'ala blessed him with. They were all major scholars, all of them, generation after generation, students of Imam Shaykh al-Islam Sayyid Nazir Hussain Dehlawi, and they also got introduced to the da'wah and the call of Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab from an early stage in Amritsar, which was their headquarters in the state of Punjab in present day India. And they and Allama Abdullah and his sons then not did they just service the literature of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab and printing the books of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab and his students and his family members for the first time in the Arabic language from their publishing house in Amritsar in India. Rather, they had a direct connection with the family of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab and Ali Saud. And that is that two of the sons of Allama Abdullah Ghaznavi, and they are Allama Abdul Rahim and Allama Abdul Wahid Ghaznavi. Both of them from the foremost students also of Shaykh al-Kull Sayyid Nazir Hussain Dehlawi. They along with being scholars, they were also traders. They also used to trade in the Arab worlds. So they had traveled to Kuwait, a country in northwestern part of the Arabic Peninsula, and there they met Amir Abdurrahman Al-Faisal Al-Saud and his son Abdul Aziz Al-Saud. And Amir Abdurrahman Al-Faisal Al-Saud, he was the last ruler of the second Saudi state. The Saudi state, then it went through three phases and three states. The first is the state of Amir Muhammad bin Saud rahimullah, that was established with the agreement, as we mentioned, with Shaykh al-Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab almost 300 years ago. Then the Ottoman, the Turkish Empire, they attacked them, the Ra'iyya, and they destroyed their city, and they killed the scholars, and they forcefully forced them to migrate from the Ra'iyya to other towns and other regions. Then they came back to their land of the Ra'iyya, and Imam Amir Turki bin Abdullah Al-Saud, he established the second Saudi state. He established the second Saudi state, which only lasted a few years. And again, the Ottomans, they attacked them and they expelled them from their lands. So at this stage, from their children, Amir Abdurrahman Al-Faisal Al-Saud, who was the ruler of the second Saudi state, they took refuge in Kuwait. And with him was his son, Amir Abdul Aziz Al-Saud, who went on to return to their seat in Najd, and he, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah, conquered the entire Arabic Peninsula and established the third Saudi state that still exists, which is known as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The founder, Malik Abdul Aziz Al-Saud, Abdul Aziz bin Abdul Rahman Al-Faisal Al-Saud, rahimahullah. So these two sons of Allama Abdullah Ghaznavi, Allama Abdul Rahim and Abdul Wahid Ghaznavi, they met Amir Abdul Rahman and Malik Abdul Aziz in Kuwait when they were taking refuge from the Ottomans in Kuwait. And there they taught them knowledge and the science of Hadith. And Imam Abdul Aziz Al-Saud, he benefited from them. He's from the students, and he got heavily influenced by them and the Ahle-Hadith Dawah of the call of the Ahle-Hadith in the Indo-Pak subcontinent. So when he conquered Najd and he conquered a majority of the Arabian Peninsula, which is the foundation of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, he invited these two scholars from the major students of Imam Nazir Hussain Dehlawi, Allama Abdul Rahim Abdul Wahid Ghaznavi, to come to Najd, to live amongst him and to teach the scholars of Najd, various sciences of Islam, from the foremost of them the science of Hadith. Hadith and his sciences. So these two brothers, they traveled to Najd. They traveled to Najd, Riyadh, which became the capital of the third Saudi state after Dar'iyah, and they remained there for 5 years. They remained there for 5 years. In that time, the major scholars of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, who are the shuyukh of the major scholars today, they all studied with them. And they all benefited from them. They're all from the students of these two students of Imam Nazir Hussain Dahlawi, Allama Abdul Rahim and Abdul Wahid Ghaznavi. And this caused the close link and connection of Al Saud, Hafidhahumullah, with the Ahle-Hadith Dawah of the Indo-Pak subcontinent. Malik Abdul Aziz and his sons, from the sons who have ruled the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia after him until our time, Malik Salman, Hafidhahullah, then they have kept a close connection with the Ahle-Hadith Dawah. Whenever they visit the Indo-Pak subcontinent, the first people they go to are the Ahle-Hadith. And they honor them, they revere them, they respect them. They have not forgotten this virtue the Ahle-Hadith have upon their fathers and their grandfathers. These two great scholars, Allama Abdul Rahim and Abdul Wahid Ghaznavi, they brought the manuscripts of the books of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab and his students and his children. They brought them back to Amritsar, to India, and then they published it for the first time from their publishing house in the Indo-Pak subcontinent. The first books of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab and his students and the scholars of this movement, then they have been published in the Indo-Pak subcontinent. And Allama Abdul Wahid Ghaznavi, he also had a righteous son from the major scholars of the Ahlul-Hadith, Sheikh Muhammad Ismail Ghaznavi, and he was from the right-hand men of Malik Abdul Aziz, rahimahullah. He severely respected him, honored him due to his close connection with his father, Allama Abdul Wahid Ghaznavi. And Allama Ismail Ghaznavi, he translated the book, the well-known book of the major scholar of this revolutionary Dawah in Najd of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab, who is Allama Sulaiman ibn Sahman. Sulaiman ibn Sahman, his well-known book Al-Hidayah Sunniyah والتحفة الوهابية النجدية لجميع إخواننا الموحدين من أهل الملة الحنيفية والطريقة المحمدية. This book, which is one of the foremost books in the matter of Tawheed and refuting shirk and all matters pertaining to innovation, then he translated it into the Urdu language that he titled Tuhfa Wahhabiyya, and he wrote in his introduction a detailed biography of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab and Amir Muhammad ibn Saud rahimahumullah, and the connection of the Ahlul Hadith with this da'wah and call. And he gifted this book to King Abdul Aziz rahimahullah, and they had a close connection. King Abdul Aziz wished and requested for him to move to Riyadh to be his personal assistant, but due to his busyness and efforts in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, he refused, but he would regularly go for Hajj and Umrah, and he wrote several books in defense of the da'wah of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab and the efforts of Malik Abdul Aziz, King Abdul Aziz rahimahullah, in the Arabic Peninsula at a time when all of the Muslims all over the world, they had shown and united in enmity against King Abdul Aziz Al Saud and his efforts in the Haramain, specifically in Mecca and Medina, of eradicating the graves and the mausoleums that were built upon the graves of the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum ajma'in in Baqi and in Mu'alla, in Mecca, in other places. Then Imam Abdul Aziz Al Saud rahimullah, along with the scholars of this da'wah of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab, they eradicated these mausoleums that were being worshipped other than Allah, and they leveled the graves to the ground, as is in the Sunnah, how the Prophet ﷺ sent his cousin Ali bin Abi Talib radiyallahu anhu, as established in authentic hadith. He sent him on this mission that he does not leave any raised grave except that he levels it. So all of the Muslims in the entire world, and the foremost of them were the Muslims of the Indo-Pak subcontinent, they took a stance in unity against King Abdulaziz. And this movement and call in Hijaz, in Mecca, the only people who stood with them in the entire world are the Ahle-Hadith. The only people who aided them and defended them are the Ahle-Hadith. Allama Ismail Ghaznavi, the son of Allama Abdul Wahid Ghaznavi, he wrote several books regarding this matter that are published and well known. He wrote his book Istiqlal Hijaz, Islahat Hijaz, Jalalatul Malik ibn Saud or Khidmat Haramain Sharifain, various books in the Urdu language in defending this revival movement of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab and the efforts of King Abdulaziz Rahimullah in the Haramain of eradicating shirk and innovations and misguidance from it. Allama Muhammad Ismail Ghaznavi, he passed away in the year 1960 in Pakistan. And not just that which has preceded from aiding and supporting and servicing the dawah and the call of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab by way of knowledge and writing and translating and publishing and teaching. Rather, the Ahlul-Hadith, they also aided and supported the dawah on a political level by way of strength and force also. So from the foremost of the Imams of the Ahlul-Hadith, from the foremost scholars of Imam Sayyid Nazir Hussain Dahlawi, such as Shaykh al-Islam Sana'ullah Amritsari and Muhammad Junagari and Abul Qasim Saif Banarasi, and their students such as Allama Muhammad Dawood Ghaznavi, the first Amir, the first president of the Ahlul-Hadith Society of Pakistan after Pakistan came into existence in 1947, Allama Muhammad Yunus Khan Rais, Allama Abu Mas'ud Khan Qamar Banarasi, and other than them, then they have several efforts politically in aiding and defending the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the call and the movement of Shaykh Islam Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab. Then we will move on to the third da'wah and call that had a great effect and influence upon the Ahlul Hadith Salafi da'wah in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, and that had a close connection and link to it, which is the call of Shaykh Islam Muhammad bin Ali al-Shawkani, Imam al-Shawkani rahimahullah. And Imam al-Shawkani, as was preceded, then he is also from the contemporaries of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, from the students of Allama Imam Muhammad Hayat Ibn Ibrahim al-Sindhi, from the major scholars of the Ahlul Hadith of the Indo-Pak subcontinent from Sindh, who had migrated to Medina, as we mentioned. And he passed away in the year 1250 after the Hijrah. His call is, along with calling to Tawheed and eradicating shirk and innovations and misguidance, then his focus was on fighting taqleed, blindfolding of Imams, from the Imams, and madhahib, fanatism, extremism to it. His basis of his call was calling the Muslims back to unconditionally following the two revelations, the two wahi, the Quran and the Sunnah, and giving precedence to it, and not rejecting the Quran and the Sunnah for a statement of an Imam from the Imams or a madhab from the madhahib, to go with the Quran and the Sunnah wherever it leads them. And the first time that the call of Imam al-Shawkani rahimahullah, then it reached his movement and his methodology and his efforts reached the Indo-Pak subcontinent, then they were by way of the movement of Sayyid Ahmad Shahid rahimahullah, who has preceded Tahriq al-Shahidain, the first Islamic movement in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, when he went for Hajj with hundreds of scholars and hundreds of people upon Tawheed and the Sunnah from the Ahlul Hadith. When he went for Hajj, then amongst the scholars with him in that trip for Hajj was Allama Abdul Hayy Siddiqi Badhanwi. And during this journey of Hajj, he wrote a letter to Imam al-Shawkani in Yemen, in Sana'a, the capital of Yemen. He wrote a letter to Imam al-Shawkani rahimahullah, and he sought ijazah, permission to narrate hadith from this great Imam. And so Imam al-Shawkani wrote back to him with his ijazah, with his chain of narration, and he also sent him gifts of his books, manuscript copies of his books that he had written, such as Fawaid al-Majmu'a and Ad-Durar al-Bahiyya, which is from the foremost of the texts in fiqh upon the methodology of the Ahle-Hadith, and other books. He's gifted them to Allama Abdul Hayy Siddiqui Badanwi. And then came Allama Abdul Haq Banarasi, and others from the major scholars of the Ahlul Hadith, such as Allama Wilayat Ali Sadiq Puri and Uthman No Shahrwai that had just preceded, and others that directly benefited and had contact with Imam al-Shawkani, that directly benefited and learned this methodology and sought the knowledge of the branches of Islam, especially the branch of Hadith, the science of Hadith from Imam al-Shawkani. And this is how the chain of narration of Imam al-Shawkani, it reached the Indo-Pak subcontinent by way of the scholars. The Indo-Pak subcontinent and the chains of narration of Hadith in our times, they all return to the Indo-Pak subcontinent. All of the chains of narrations in our time of the scholars of Hadith, wherever they are in the world, they all return back to the Indo-Pak subcontinent. And these are two chains. They can be summarized in two chains. One chain is the chain of Shah Waliullah Dahlawi, Multaqa al-Asanid, that goes by way of either the Ahlul Hadith, which is whose Imam is Imam Shaykhul Kul fil Kul Sayyid Nazir Hussain Dahlawi, upon the authority of Shah Muhammad Ishaq, upon the authority of his grandfather Shah Abdul Aziz, upon the authority of his father Shah Waliullah Dahlawi. And the other chain is the Deobandi Hanafi chain of Abu Sa'id al-Mujaddidi on the authority of Muhammad Ishaq, with this chain to Shah Waliullah Dahlawi. The second chain is the chain of Imam al-Shawkani. Imam al-Shawkani, that goes, because Imam al-Shawkani is from the contemporaries of Shah Waliullah Dahlawi. So it goes to the Prophet ﷺ and the books of Hadith and the scholars of Hadith by way of Imam al-Shawkani. And this reaches the scholars today by way of these foremost scholars of the Ahlul Hadith from the Indo-Pak subcontinent, such as Allama Abdul Haq Banarasi and other than it. And in the year 1254 after the Hijrah, Nawab Mustafa Khan Shefta, and he's from the well-known scholars of the Urdu language and poets in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, Nawab Mustafa Khan, who passed away in the year 1869, and he was the companion of Mirza Ghalib, the well-known poet and scholar of Urdu literature in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, and his nickname was Shefta. He was born in Delhi, and he belonged to a very rich ruling family of Delhi. They had several vast areas that they controlled and ruled in Gurgaon and Meerut, which are to the east and west of Delhi in various states today of Haryana and Uttar Pradesh. So he made Hajj in the year 1254 after the Hijrah, and he compiled what he witnessed during his Hajj, which is known as Safarnama in the Indo-Pak subcontinent. The scholars who made Hajj, they would compile that which they witnessed during Hajj in a diary, in a book, and then many of these have been published by Safarnama, by the name Safarnama. So he has a Safarnama that is titled Sirajun Munir. He says in this book, नाज़रीन ने शौकानी का हाल जो सनआ के काज़ी अल-क़ुदात थे सुना होगा, कहते हैं कि बाद सलफ़ के ऐसा हदीस में माहिर और बाखबर शायद ही कोई पैदा हुआ हो। फ़ुरू में किसी इमाम की तक़लीद नहीं करते थे, बल्कि ख़ुद अपने इज्तिहाद पर अमल करते थे। ये महज़ इन्हीं की आदत ना थी, बल्कि सनआ के तमाम अहले हदीस का यही तरीक़ा है। सनआ के अवाम उन्नास का यही मसलक है। He says that the scholars might have heard of Imam al-Shawkani. Imam al-Shawkani is from the major scholars of Sana'a, the capital of Yemen, and he's from the foremost of the jurists in the region of Sana'a. And it is mentioned, he says, that after the Salaf al-Salih, after the three rightly guided predecessors, their generations, then in Yemen, no one has come who revived the methodology of the Salaf on this grand scale, then greater than Imam al-Shawkani. Imam al-Shawkani, who's from the major scholars of Hadith upon the methodology of the Salaf, his methodology was just, he did not make taqleed, blind following of anyone from the Imams and the Madhahib, Rather, he used to unrestrictedly follow the Quran and the Sunnah. And this was not just his methodology, rather his influence spread to the other scholars of Sana'a that became Ahle-Hadith. That the majority of the scholars of Sana'a, due to his influence, they became Ahle-Hadith upon this methodology of unrestrictedly following the Quran and the Sunnah. Rather, even the Awam, the layman Muslims of Sana'a, they have also accepted and they have implemented this methodology of the Ahlul-Hadith. And in the year 1285 after the Hijrah, the Imam of the Ahlul-Hadith in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, Rahimullah, he also made Hajj, and he went for Hajj. And when he reached Mecca and Medina, he brought back with him several of the manuscripts and books of Imam al-Shawkani. And he met there the students of Imam al-Shawkani, the students of Imam al-Shawkani and the students of his son, his great son, Allama Ahmad ibn Muhammad ibn Ali al-Shawkani. So he met the students of Imam al-Shawkani and the students of his son, and he was introduced to this great Imam, and he brought his books back with him to Bhopal in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, and he is the first person to have published the books of Imam al-Shawkani in the entire world. The first books of Imam al-Shawkani that have been published in the entire world, then they have been published in Bhopal with the supervision and the wealth and the striving of Imam Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, who published them on his budget and then distributed them freely to the scholars all over the world. And Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, then you will not find a book of his except that it is filled with quotes of Imam al-Shawkani. Rather, he has quoted pages and pages and pages of the books of Imam al-Shawkani. Rather, many of his books are exact copies with some additions and benefits of the books of Imam al-Shawkani. And he has translated many of the books of Imam al-Shawkani into the Urdu and Persian language. And he wrote several books servicing the books of Imam al-Shawkani. So the great manual in the fiqh of the Ahlul Hadith that Imam al-Shawkani authored, Ad-Durar al-Bahiyya, then Imam Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan explained it in his vast explanation in the Arabic language, Al-Rawdatun Nadiyya fi Sharh Ad-Durar al-Bahiyya, which is from the foremost of the texts in the fiqh of the Ahlul Hadith. And this continued in the Ahlul Hadith, this service and reverence and respect of the call and the methodology of Imam al-Shawkani, the methodology of the Salaf Ahlul Hadith, until Allama Muhammad Ahle-Hadith Bhojiani, Rahimullah, who we mentioned previously, he came and he wrote his well-known article in a detailed biography of Imam al-Shawkani. Imam al-Shawkani, which is one of the foremost of the reference points in the Urdu language for a detailed biography of Imam al-Shawkani that he published in the year 1946, before the partition of Indo-Pakistan, when he was in Bhojian, which is today near Amritsar in Punjab, India, after which he migrated to Lahore. And we will finish with this, that sadly, in comparison to the previous two movements of Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, then the books of Imam al-Shawkani, who without a doubt, he has written more books than Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab, who has more books. His library and literature is more vast, and he has written books in all branches of Islam. He is from the mutafannin scholars, written books in tafasir, written books in hadith, written books in fiqh, written books in seerah, and in all branches of Islam. Sadly, his books, then they have not been translated into the Urdu language as the books of Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab. That his books, to the most part, then they have not been translated as the previous two scholars' books. So there's a need and a right upon us that we, the Ahlul Hadith, they spend their efforts in translating the books of this great Imam, Shaykh Islam Muhammad bin Ali al-Shawkani, Rahimullah, into the Urdu language, so that the layman Muslims can also benefit from his books and his methodology that are upon the methodology of the Salaf, Ahlul Hadith. And here we finish the three major calls and movements that influenced the Ahlul Hadith Salafi Dawah in the Indo-Pak subcontinent. They had a close, direct link and connection with it and have till today. Rather, the scholars of the Indo-Pak subcontinent of the Ahlul Hadith, they are the first of the people who service these three calls, who serviced these three causes before even their own people, before even the students and the children of Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahhab and Imam Shawkani. The first books, the first people who published the books of these scholars and explained them and translated them and serviced them are the scholars of the Ahle-Hadith of the Indo-Pak subcontinent. And we'll end here. If there are any questions, then we can address them.
So we know that a lot of books of Ibn Taymiyyah, he discusses about the people of Kalam and Mantiq, and he brings that terminology and then refutes them. So is it safe to say that this is serviced better than by the Indo-Pak scholars because they were an expert in this field?
Yeah, of course. This branch, which is Ilmul Kalam and Mantiq and Falsafa, philosophy and rhetoric, then due to the environment in the Indo-Pak subcontinent of centuries upon centuries, the Muslims being raised and cultivated, the scholars upon these sciences and branches, that they devote their lives in studying falsafa, philosophy and rhetoric. And the Hanafi madhab, then it is the madhab of the Ahlul Rai. Then it is in its foundation based upon Rai, upon opinions and judgments. And then the Hanafis who came after, then they have majority of them or all of them, they are from the Mutakallimin, from the Ahlul Kalam, from the people of rhetoric, from the Mu'tazila and the Jahmiyyah and other than it. So the Ahlul Hadith in the Indo-Pak subcontinent, then they always felt a need to study these sciences from the angle of refuting the people of innovation and misguidance, from refuting the Deobandis and the Barelvis and the Hanafis whose madhab and whose positions and whose religion are based upon these sciences. So if one does not have mastery in these sciences, then he cannot argue with them and refute them. So the Ahlul Hadith scholars, they have always studied these sciences, and it is also taught until our times in the education institutes of the Ahlul Hadith. And without a doubt, this enabled them to more firmly understand and explain and teach and translate the literature of Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah also dedicated his efforts against the Mutakallimin, the Ahlul Kalam, the people of rhetoric, the Ashaira and other than it. And he used their own arguments in refuting them. So the scholars of the Ahlul Hadith, without a doubt, due to them having mastery and proficiency in this science, and more so than the Arab scholars, then they are more well versed in understanding these books, in teaching it and conveying it to the people. No.
What is the meaning of the terminology Shaykh al-Qul?
This will come inshallah when we get to the biography of Imam Mujaddid Sayyid Nazir Hussain Dahlawi. But to answer the question, he is known by this great title, Shaykh al-Kulli fil Kull. Shaykh al-Kulli fil Kull. Shaykh al-Kull fil Kull, meaning Shaykh of everyone. He is the Imam of generations of scholars. As we'll mention that tens and thousands of the major scholars of Islam from the Indo-Pak subcontinent and all over the world, from China until the western parts of the world, they were his students. He is Imam al-Asr. He is Mujaddid al-Asr. That they are all his students. So he's Shaykh al-Kull. He is the Shaykh of all of the major scholars of his time. All of them are his students. Fil Kull, he is a Shaykh and a scholar in all sciences and branches. Shaykh al-Kull fil Kull. He is a scholar of all the scholars in all aspects and branches and sciences of Islam. Branches and sciences of Islam. And of course, that which he is well known for is the science of Hadith, Hadith and his sciences. But he is someone who is well versed and an ocean of knowledge in all of the branches and sciences of Islam. No.
What causes the manuscripts of, for example, Ibn Taymiyyah to be scattered across the world?
This is a vast topic. The manuscripts of any author from the past to the present, then they are scattered all over the world. You will not find it in one place, in one library, or in his city, or in his locality. For example, Shaykh Islam Ibn Taymiyyah lived and died in Damascus, Syria, and his manuscript you will find all the way here in Canada, in America, all the way to the east in China, in Japan, wherever. And this is the case with all the literature of the scholars of Islam. And from the reasons for this are many reasons. From them are traders, that they are traders who trade in manuscripts. They are traders who trade in manuscripts. This is a big business and it's a very lucrative business. People buy and sell manuscripts, especially manuscripts in personal collections. you have a grandfather, you have a father, he left a library, then many of the people, they sell these libraries. They do not know the worth, the children and the grandchildren, they do not know the worth of these libraries and these manuscripts. So, or they might even know the worth and they need money. They do not have concern for the books and manuscripts, so they sell it. And then people sell it. So it's a big business. So these manuscripts are sold all over the world. This is one reason. The second reason are the wars and the colonization that occurred of the Muslim lands from past times, earlier times. The Tatar of Genghis Khan, in the time of Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, they attacked the Muslims and they ended their rule, and they took books and burned books and threw the books in the rivers of Iraq, in Dajla, etc. It is mentioned by the historians that the rivers of Iraq, when the Tatars attacked the Abbasid dynasty, that was at the ending of its stages, that for a week or so it ran red. It ran red from the blood of the Muslims that they shed, the Tatars. And then it ran black for a week from the books and the heritage of the Muslims that they destroyed. Because the non-Muslims, they know that to deviate the Muslims from Islam, then the first matter is to deviate them from knowledge, is to take knowledge away from them, is to enter them into ignorance. So these colonized the British Empire, they looted the Indo-Pak subcontinent. This is something that is not hidden. They looted everything of value, from treasures, from jewels, from books, and everything else. This is why you find them in Britain, in Netherlands, in Germany, in other libraries all over the world. And there are other reasons for these books reaching these manuscript scholars in past times. They made a copy of this book and then he returned to his locality, and then he left it in his locality or gifted it, and now it's preserved in that locality. So there are other reasons for this. No.
You see, these three movements and da'was, that Allah Ta'ala blessed the Muslims with at one time, and He revived through them, the deen of Islam, as the Prophet promised. So this was something amazing, no doubt, and we're still, I think, feeling the effects of these. But they happened at the worst political time, perhaps, in the history of, meaning for a long time, that every empire was falling from amongst the Muslims. So does this happen? Do we see this in history, where political situation might be extremely poor of the Muslims, while the deen of Islam is revived amongst?
There's no connection between the two. Knowledge and the methodology of the Salaf, Ahle-Hadith, and politics, there's no connection between them. Allah Ta'ala, He sends the scholars, the revivers, whenever He wills, or whatever time He wills, to revive the religion. Some of them might be blessed with political strength and support, such as Shaykh Islam Muhammad Abdul Wahab. Some of them might spend their lives in jail, like Shaykh Islam Taymiyyah, rahimahullah, who was severely tortured and jailed, and he passed away in jail. And other revivers in the Indo-Pak subcontinent. So this is something that Allah Ta'ala wills from His wisdom. So there's no connection between the two, but we have faith in the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, which is narrated by several of the companions, authentic hadith in the Sahihain, and other than it, لَا تَزَالُ طَائِفَةٌ مِّنْ أُمَّتِي ظَاهِرِينَ عَلَى الْحَقِّ لَا يَضُرُّهُمْ مَنْ خَذَلَهُمْ وَلَا مَنْ خَالَفَهُمْ حَتَّى يَأْتِيَ أَمْرُ اللَّهِ. That there will always remain a group in my nation who will remain upon the truth. Who will remain upon the truth, those people who oppose them, forsake them, politics, they agree with them, the politicians, political power, they oppose them, they shun them, it doesn't matter. They'll remain upon the truth until the end of times. They remain until the end of times, until the establishment of the hour. May Allah Ta'ala make us from them. And we'll end here. Wallahu Ta'ala a'lam. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira.
وذكر فإن الذكرى تنفع المؤمنين وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون